Hello there, and thank you for joining me. This is Doris Benter of Library Arts, and today we're going to explore the wonderful world of the artist Ted Harrison. Ted Harrison was British born, but he was very inspired by his Canadian life, where he spent many years painting the landscapes, animals, and people of the Yukon. So today we're going to create a drawing based on this beautiful painting called Whales of Monterey. We're going to use color pencil and regular pencil on copy paper, and I look forward to working with you. Let's get started. Okay, let's get started. So this is a reproduction of the Whales of Monterey painting by Ted Harrison, and you're going to notice that it's a narrow rectangle. So even though we're going to work on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, we are going to be trimming off the bottom portion of the paper just to make the measurements of the paper more in sync with the format of this painting and the narrowness of the rectangle. You're going to note that in this beautiful painting of the whales that there's a really strong, warm, and cool color contrast, which is very notable in his work. So as we get started, we'll talk about the colors that you might want to use in your color pencils. Like for instance, these are some of the colors I've picked out for my whales and part of the background. We're going to do the drawing in pencil. Now I have a marker drawing of the composition I've done in advance. This is going to assist me in helping you to do a pencil drawing of the composition before we add color. But before we even start with that pencil drawing, I want you to take your 8.5 by 11 inch paper. You're going to fold up approximately, I'm going to say this is about 3/4 of an inch, but I will measure to check because we are going to cut off. No, it's actually about an inch. I want you to cut about an inch off the bottom of your paper. So if you just fold it up about an inch, it doesn't even have to be perfectly an inch. Fold it up. Trim that piece off with a pair of scissors. Then we'll be able to get started on the pencil drawing. Now I will be working with my paper on top so that I can guide you through what actually is much more of a complex drawing than you think. It's a lot of horizontal lines, but there's a lot of, twists and turns in that landscape. So we're going to get started in the next segment. Get your paper and pencil ready. Trim your paper an inch from the bottom in the horizontal landscape format. Trim off that inch, and we'll get started with the drawing in the next video. Okay, so at this point you probably have trimmed your paper so it's slightly narrower than the original 8.5 by 11. As I told you, I have already created a composition using marker to lay out the various layers of the landscape. We're going to start with the whales, the two fish, then we're going to add the horizontal organic lines behind them to build the landscape. So let's put my paper on top as I lead you through drawing the whales and the fish. So the whales are not quite centered in the picture. There's actually a bit of sort of dark ground in the bottom of the picture. They have the two little fish, the whales, and then there's a slightly more landscape on top. So let's start with the first whale. There are two, one overlapping the other. We're going to start with the first one, the redder one out of the two. And we're going to start by just taking our pencil and making a curve. Almost like you're making a little hill. Now you're going to take your pencil down that hill and stop. That's going to be the tip of the whale's nose. This line, you're going to curve it upwards and stop. That will be part of the tail. So you can see how you have this rounded form already forming the whale's body. Now let's go to the mouth. We're going to come inwards about an inch with a little curve, stop. That's going to be the opening of the mouth. Now we're going to come out to a little point and stop. Let's go back to the tail for a minute. So we were over here, we came up. Now the tail is going to be like two fins coming out. So we're going to curve up to a point, just a soft curve up. And now we're going to take that point downwards, around, and stop. I like to take the drawing slow so that you have time to catch up. We're going to come up to a point and stop. And you can see how one fin is completed and the other one's coming in. We're going to come downwards and sort of match up where we left off with the other one. So there's the completed tail, the back of the whale, and the mouth. Now we're going to finish the bottom of the whale with the outgoing fin. So we're going to come down like this, skinny tail. We're going to come over, downwards, and stop. And now we're going to form the upper and lower part of that bottom fin. So we'll take a little curve outward from the body, a little hill down to a point. Now let's start at that point, come around to balance that little curve there and come in a little longer and stop. So there is the fin of the whale. Now, coming out here, just leaving those two little lines overlapping the body of the whale, little bump, come around and match up with the mouth. So there you got one whale right there. Add a little eye right near the opening of the mouth. And now we're going to draw the other whale. Now there are lines of color that go through both whales, this orange and red. We're going to add that after we get the general whale's body, so let's not worry about that too much, even though you might see it through my drawing. Let's start right here at the edge of the existing whale. We're going to come out from that line and make a long curve all the way to the nose of the whale. So that curve is really kind of a similar curve that we did for the first whale. We're going to take that line inwards and stop. We're going to be forming the same type of mouth we did for this whale. We're going to do a little narrow U-turn and come back to a point. And now this whale is going to line up with the mouth of that whale. So we're going to take that line, come down, and line it right up with that edge. So there you basically have almost both whales. Let's add an eye over here near the mouth again. And now we're going to come over here and finish the tail. The tail is very similar to this one. We're going to start here again at the first whale, come up with two narrow lines, almost like a little skinny tree trunk. We're going to form one fin by coming up to a point, stop there. Form the other fin by coming up to a point, stop there. And then we're going to come over in, and again, just go off a soft hill and come up to the point. So you have the two main whales. Now we're going to draw the two fish, and then we will stop there and then talk about doing the landscape, okay? So, two small fish, one here and one here. Let's get those maybe baby whales. We don't know for sure. So, we're going to start right here, right near the tip of that fin with this one first small fish. Here, we're going to start at the tip of the nose and mouth of the fin of the fish, I meant to say. Come up and stop with a little curve, almost like we were doing here. Come up for a tiny little ridge. This is a little fin. Come across and down. So that's just a suggestion of a fin on that fish. We're going to come down at a slight diagonal. And now we're going to be creating the tail of the fish. Come up and out, similar to what we did here. Take the fin, the fish tail down, come back over here to make the other half. Again, similar to this, but skinnier. Come in. We have that thin bridge between the two sides of the fish. Come inwards here, stop. Draw a small skinny fin. And now we'll finish the fish coming up to the mouth. And again, a small eye. Okay, let's come over here now. This tail, we're going to use the tail on this fish to start because it actually gives us a little indication of where this ground line of black will be. So we're going to start right here, and that will help us draw that ground line later. So here we're going to start with the fish's tail again. Come down, come out, come in. So there is the fish's tail. Again, a skinny little transition into the body, just like we did over here on this part. Come up, and now we're going to have that same kind of rectangular fin. So we're going to put a straight line here, go across, almost like a crew cut here. And then we're going to come down for the fish's face and head. Come around, so that's the head of the fish. Slightly down a little bit. Draw another skinny fin with a sort of pointy, almost like a triangular edge. Come in a little bit, there's the fin, and let's join the rest of the fish to the fin like that and add an eye. Perfect, we're gonna stop right there, and in the next video, we will add lines to indicate where the landscape is. Okay, so we just finished the whales and the two fish. Now we're ready to add this layered color scape. It's both water, but almost like land at the same time, isn't it? So these lines are very wavy, organic. You don't see a lot of straight lines. There's going to be natural lines that go up and down, bumpy. I'm going to walk you through it. But don't feel like your lines have to be exactly precisely like what you see here. Even mine are slightly different. So that's just going to provide the beautiful layers that make up the rest of the picture. Then we'll add the whale lines after that. Okay, so we're going to start at the bottom where the darkest part of the picture is. And as I said, that tail of this fish is going to help us, as well as this, to figure out where our this dark sandy bottom line goes. So let's start right here on the right hand side. We're going to take a hill, draw a hill as if we're going downwards. So you're coming into this little valley. We're going to come up right near the fin of the fish. It's going to go up, touch the tail, come around, go down, picking up where you just left off, come up just a little tiny bit, and it's sort of a rambling, as I said, organic line that goes through the fish's tail here, up into a hill and off the page. So that's going to be the dark portion of the picture right here. Okay. Next, we're going to run into a blue line that starts, again, we're using the whale's face and mouth as a reference point for where to add this line. We're going to start here at the very edge, come inwards, a little valley, come up like a hill, and come right to the nose of the whale. Now, I'm going to, again, come back and do the lines inside the whale afterwards, but I'm going to continue the line that we were just working on for the blue. Over here, we're going to come off the tail, into a little valley, up a tiny hill, and off the page. Okay, next, there's a slightly wider section of blue. We're going to start down with a little valley, come up to a little hill, come down, touch the whale, stop, and now we're going to continue on the other side of the whale here. It's going to be a skinny shape that comes across, goes to the whale's tail there, comes back out, goes up and down to that tail, comes off the tail, continues, and goes off the page. So it's just a lot of layers that we're finishing here. Now let's come back over here. This is a light blue layer. We're going to go up to a slight hill, level off a bit, dip down towards the whale, come back up to a small hill, come back down to touch the whale's tail. That whale's tail is going to lead to the next whale's tail. We're going to come up to a hill a bit, come back, touch that tip of the tail, and then come off the page. Okay, we're getting there. A few more layers. So you can see half the picture is pretty much done now. Let's go up to the red layer in the landscape. So we're right here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more layers to draw. Okay, so we're at the red line. Come up here, up to a mountain, little mountain. Come down with 2 bumps into a slight valley, little hill. Come back up and a little bump. Come up to sort of a mountain peak of sorts. Come down close to the whale's tail, over the tail, dip a little bit and go off. Again, you can vary this a little bit and it would not be a problem. Next, we have the deepest purple. It's just a small shape that comes into this mountain area here. So we're going to come off the page, up, down a little tip and stop. Then that purple is going to continue from the tip of this mountain. It's going to come up, bumps, little valley, another bump, comes up a bit, goes down a bit, and it comes over into the mountain and stops. On the other side of that little mountain, it goes down, up into a hill, another tip of a little mountain, and then it goes right off the page. Okay, 2 more lines across, and then we can start talking about the color of the whale. So this is going to be the lavender, kind of a purpley lavender here, and then we're going to draw the line there, and we're just going to leave these shapes for the sky behind, okay? So we're going to come up to here, to a mountain top. Square off a little bit, come down, another tiny little mountain top, come back down. We're going to go above this mountain and a little to the right, come down, go up and off. Okay? Now we're at the point where we're going to add the last line across, except for 1 more after that actually, but we're going to climb up and off the paper to create this wide mountain top that is cropped. We're going to come down, round it, up, climbing up again to off the paper. Over here, we're going to come back onto the paper and just meander off the page. Now there is a little bit, 1 more line that's going to echo that shape a bit and go off, and that's it. Now we can go back now and just add the lines inside the whale. Now these land lines that we put in are going to help us to understand those color lines going through the whale. So right here, the second line we created from the black to the dark blue, we're going to continue that line and go across this whale into the next whale, down to a tip, up to the tail, and stop. Here we're going to come down into a valley, up and match that blue line there. There's another line that we're going to add that starts right here from the mouth. It goes right across below that little triangular tip here, goes all the way across, and it comes up and goes to the edge of the tail like that. There's a line that continues right through the tail there, and there's a line that continues right through the tail here. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yep, I think we have all those lines now. So we're going to stop here, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce color inside the whales and the 2 fish in the next segment. See you in a moment. And welcome back. So when I think about the colors in the whales, I want you to take a look at the original. The original has a lot of rich reds, deeper reds, mid reds, oranges, pinks, and sort of salmon color. And then the outline is beautiful periwinkle blue. The two fish, which we're also going to do, are going to be in more of a pink range, which you can utilize in that salmon color. So you're going to want to pick out some nice reds, pinks, oranges, and then of course a light blue to accent. So you might want to take a moment, stop the video here to find the colors you might need from your color pencils. It's always a good idea if you have a pencil sharpener, handy to use. And I always like to keep a scrap paper here where I can say, is that the red I want? Maybe I need a deeper red. So you can see the difference between the two. By the way, the color pencils that I like to use are Prismacolor brand. They're pretty good. They do break occasionally. This color pencil is just a Michaels brand, generic kind of color pencil. Nothing fancy, but it works just as well, and I actually mix the two together, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to put our reproduction up here as a reference, and I'm going to start with the deeper red that I was just using a moment ago for the center portion, that sort of midsection of the whale here, where there's sort of a triangle on top and then there's another section below. And I'm just going to put the color down, not too heavy, because I find that I like to layer my color pencils. And the other thing is, if you press too hard with color pencils, they tend to break very easily, and then you find yourself sharpening constantly, which often happens to me. So I'm going to try to not put too much pressure. I often actually will have my marker outlines of these shapes, but in this case, since there's a beautiful blue being used for the outlining of the individual whales and the fish, I'm not going to use marker. I just use pencil, and I use marker just to create that composition as a guideline for helping you to draw your picture. So I'm just putting the red down as a base color here. Now in the painting, what did I tell you? Right there, didn't take long. My pencil already broke, so I'm going to give it a quick sharpen. But in the painting, the color is going to be much deeper, but you're going to have to work with the color pencil to get a red that's, dark, but not too dark, because if you press too hard, as I said and just showed you, it will break. So sometimes you can put down one layer, you can come back later, add another layer. I'm just going to go around that eye, and that eye is going to be that beautiful periwinkle blue that we were just talking about. Okay, and I'm going to continue the red into the tail up to that line that sort of splits it into another color area. And that is not unusual in Ted Harrison's work. He has these multiple layers within shapes of color, and he definitely likes to use that warm and cool color contrast. So we're working on the warm tones here in the whale, but there'll be a lot of cool tones and some warm tones in the background. Okay, so there's that deeper red. Now I'm going to need a red that is a little more of an orangey red, and I do have a beautiful color here. It's called Rouge Pavot, and I'm going to use that because it has a nice orange tone, which is a little, you see how it's a little different from the red I just used, and I think that's just the right red for what I need. If you do have a good set of color pencils, you will have multiple reds, more of a red-orange and a, classic rose red like I was just using a moment ago. And you might even have more of a pinky red, like another color I was thinking about using. But when I tested it on my paper, I said, no, this one definitely seems to fit the bill. fill that in. I will tend to work a lot faster than you, and I really think that you should take the time necessary to get just right with the color. You can always pause the video and then catch up afterwards. Now below here is going to be that same kind of a red. Now this time I don't think my pencil's going to break, but I think it's going to dull down, and I'm going to need to resharpen it shortly. Maybe the best idea is to have two sets of color pencils so you can constantly be grabbing the next one as they wear down so that you're prepared to continue working. Here we go. So I'm going to come down here. Again, this is going to have that beautiful blue, which I can't wait to add because I think that's going to really add a very special highlight to the whale's body once we're able to add it. And you can even leave a little space like this between the two colors to leave room for that blue so it can really pop out and show off the color. Interestingly enough, I noticed in the painting that he actually probably started with the red that is here, and he added this lighter, you see my pencil breaking, lighter orangey red on top. So I actually see a little edge of that beautiful, oops, and here we go again, beautiful red right on top. Then I'm going to bring it down along the edge here to really show off. Yes, we will get through this. Okay, let's bring in that blue. Here's that really pretty blue that just, see how it makes that red just vibrate. I'm going to add it there. I'm going to add it here, like this, right along the outside edge of the whale. It's going to go through that tail on the other whale, come around here, and really is just a beautiful pop of color that helps to emphasize the outline of the whale. When I do this in painting, because I have done programs in painting, I actually like to use 3D paint tubes to actually squirt a line of color to really show off the beautiful outlines in a Ted Harrison. But for here, we're just going to use the color pencil and bring that in like that and really make that whale stand out here and here and there. Okay, and back here, we're going to go back to the deeper red for the back of the tail with some of the orange red in there too. So I think it's actually kind of a combination of both the reds. So what I'm going to do is start with a little bit of the orange red, and I'm going to put some of that darker red on top of this orange red. Like this. I think that's a good close approximation to the kind of red he was using. It almost has a purpley quality to it. It makes me want to put like a red violet in there, which I may do afterwards. But there is basically your first whale, except for the beautiful blue eye. Don't forget about the blue eye. And we can come in here and add a little more, touch it up a little bit. Beautiful. And here we can even come back and darken it up around the eye, around the nose. Again, not putting too much pressure on your pencil unless you want to constantly have to sharpen it like mine. Gorgeous. Okay, the whale next to it is going to be more in the orangey pink tones. So you can see it has an orange, a salmon, and a pale pink. So we're going to bring that in, whoops, next. So let's start with that orange, which is going to be right here next to the blue. And you know, blue and orange are complements. So when they're near each other, they make each other pop and become brighter. So I think that was very intentional on the artist's part to have a hint of blue to make that orange really pop out. So we're going to fill this in. I mean, I could give you a coloring book page of this composition and you could just have fun coloring it, but I want you to learn some drawing skills. I want you to see the rhythm of his lines, how they go across the paper. I don't want you to just feel like you're just filling in a pretty picture that somebody designed. I want you to take some ownership of that picture. So there's the beautiful orange. Now we're going to need kind of a salmon color, and I'm thinking that's not going to do it. This with a little orange underneath it, I think will do it. So this pencil that we were using for the red orange over here, I'm actually going to put a light layer underneath the pink that's going to go on top of it to give it more that salmon look, because I don't really have a pencil that's a salmon pink. And that's what you can do, is you can just put a color down and put the color you want it to be, more that salmon pink, on top. So I'm putting this color down first, very lightly. And I'm going to put on a heavier note this pink. I think that's going to give us more that salmon look that we're after. And if you don't have exactly the same color, that is fine. You use what you have and you make it work. That's my motto. I don't want to feel like you can't do something because you feel like, oh, I don't have the exact color you used. It's not about that. It's about finding a compromise color or building two colors up so that you have a color that reminds you enough of what the artist had without having to do exact color. See, now this looks a little bit more salmon-y to me because I'm putting that orangey red with the pink to create that salmon color. That feels right to me. And that's what you have to do. Just find what feels right to you. If you only have pink, use the pink. That's okay. I like to layer, I like to blend, and so that's what I'm doing here, is using a blending of a few different colors to get what I want. And then up here, it is just a light pink. So I'm going to use that light pink here just by itself that I was blending with the other colors a moment ago. There. And there. And then I might come in here and just darken that edge to make it fit more like a puzzle piece. Now let's take that blue, and again, we're going to add that blue as a beautiful contrasting outline around the whale, like this. And it's going to come meet up with the mouth over here. And now let's go back over here. The same kind of beautiful coral color, we're going to do that over here too. So it's that reddish orange that we used over here with the pink on top to give us that beautiful coral. And then we're going to do the same color here, the pink by itself. Okay, just going to take this up here, tighten that up, take that pretty blue and outline tail with the blue, just like we did the rest of the whales. Gorgeous. Oh, and don't forget the eye. The eye's a little lighter here, but I'm still going to use that blue. So there you have your two beautiful whales. Now let's turn our attention to the two fish below. They tend to be in the pink family, almost a little bit lighter than the pink I have. So I think I'm going to actually put a little beige down very lightly and then put the pink on top to kind of keep it a little brighter. I feel like it's a very bright pink, so I want to just kind of use something underneath to kind of keep it bright, and I think this does it actually. With the pink on top of the beige here, feels a little less dark. We're going to have the same blue outlines that we have around the whales in these two fish, and rather than have blue eyes, they have kind of a purpley eye, kind of a red-violet eye. And same thing over here. I'm going to use the this kind of beige color over the fish first. Then I'm going to introduce pink on top. Color pencils, again, are made for layering, so don't be afraid to play with that. The higher quality color pencils you invest in, the more subtle the color variations can be. But you use what you have and make it work. Okay, now I do have a really pretty red purple that I'm going to use for each eye. This one is mulberry. There. So let's get the blue in there. Outline those two fish completely. I mean, in a way, this is a slightly more purple blue that he used on this one, but I like this color. This periwinkle just to me works. And it's not going to be an exact copy of what he did, but that's all right. And then over here, I'm going to do the same outline treatment around the fish. Trying to get as close to the body as possible. And that line actually comes in here and goes around the fin and does the same thing over here. It actually comes in here a little bit. And here too. We can bring that line in here. Okay, very good. We now have our fish and our whales done. We'll move our attention on to the background next in the next segment. See you in a minute. Okay, so our whales are done, our fish are done. Now we're going to turn our attention to the layered landscape. Now underneath my paper I've put a couple sheets of paper so that if I go off the paper as I'm coloring, I like to have somewhere where those color marks can go. My colors are going to move away from the reds and much more into purple and blues now. And we're going to start on the bottom with a very dark blue. And I have an indigo blue here that I'm going to mix with a beautiful violet to get that almost, and tiny bit of black to get that really beautiful dark purpley black bottom. And then I'll work my way up with the blues and the other purples. So again, keep your pencils nearby so that you can have quick access to them when you need them. And we'll go ahead and get started on the bottom here. So I'm going to start by putting down a layer of the purple, and I'm not going to go very heavy, not only because I don't want to break the pencil. And again, you see how I'm going to go right off the page here? It's helpful to have that paper underneath just for that reason, so you don't have to worry about trying to just color to the edge. It's just that the blue is very dark over this purple, so I want to kind of get this light purple down as a base color and just try to not be too heavy around that pretty blue outline around your fish. Try to go a little on the light side because we want that blue to pop against a very dark ground we're going to do here. And I know this will be a little time consuming, so even if you want to stop and fill it in on your own paper and then come back, you can certainly do that. You can say, well, I get the gist of what she's doing. I'm gonna go ahead and do that on my own. Find like a blue violet, put it down lightly. And again, I'm not really being precious here. I'm going pretty quickly with that blue violet. I'm gonna go heavier with the indigo. And I'm not gonna spend the whole time showing you indigo. I think I'm gonna start the indigo, then I'm gonna move on to the next section, get you started on that. Then I can start the video and come back and show you it completed so that you can do it yourself. So that's that. That's the light purple. Now comes this really beautiful dark indigo blue that we're going to put on top. You see how that purple looks really beautiful underneath the indigo blue? And then I'm actually just going to do this small section here to show you. Again, go right off that paper. Don't feel like you have to stay on it. In fact, sometimes it's good just to go off the paper first, then come back and sort of work your way closer to the edge of the paper. So I'm putting the indigo blue right here, and I'm turning my paper to make it easier to work on that part. Going a little heavier than I did with the purple, but I'm actually going to come in with a little bit of black also. And there goes that black, so I'll get another black in my color pencil in a minute. So I'll put the blue in. I'm going to put a little black in here. So just so you can see, there's going to be some black in here, right on top of that blue. So you're going to do that. The darker blue, the black on top. Now the next color I'm going to use, I'm just going to leave that unfinished, so when we finish getting this started, I'll finish that and come back and show you more. This will be more of a mid-tone blue, so you're going to have to look to find just the right blue that you need. I am thinking that's too light. This blue, which just has a number, it's called 350. It's sort of like a it's pretty. It's like a slightly, I wouldn't want to call it an aqua blue. It's more like a blue jean blue. That's what I would call it, a blue jean blue. But I'm also going to mix a little bit of this brighter blue with it to kind of give it that blue tone that I want. Yeah, that's what I want. I want something that's sort of between blue jean blue and this kind of ultramarine blue, which is what I have in my hand with the other pencil. So again, I'm going to put a combination, just like I did here, of a couple different blues. I will add more black on top of the indigo down here, and then I'm going to fill that portion, and then we're going to come back and I'll give you some time to fill yours in as well, and we'll talk about the rest of the layers. So let's stop here and you continue working on those two sections of your picture. Okay, moving right along, you can see now that the bottom portion was the combination of black, ultramarine blue, and this sort of blue jean blue. This was a combination of a lighter blue and an ultramarine blue. And now we're going to move to a lighter blue here, followed by a sky blue. So I'm going to do those two sections now, get you started, and then we'll stop, and then we'll talk about the rest of the mountains. So I'm going to start right here with this contrasting mid-tone blue, which is sort of like what they call this true blue, which is sort of like a sky blue, but not as pale as the next line will be. And once I get up to here, might be a good opportunity to show you the colors that are coming next, so that I can again do a section to show you where we're going, and then you can continue on your own with these layers, because that's what they are. They're just like layers. you want to think of layers of a cake, but these are not the standard straight layers, but the more organic shaped layers. So here's one little piece. That will be followed by a lighter blue. And I'm thinking the lightest blue that I can find will be one that is like one of these two. So I'm going to try a couple colors. That looks pretty darn light to me. This one is more like a cornflower blue. I think I'm going to go with a lighter blue, and it's going to have to remain light so I can have that contrast. So I don't want to put too much pressure on the pencil here. And I can actually erase that little sample I put in there because it wasn't quite the blue I wanted. So you can erase colored pencil when you need to. So that will be the lighter blue. It's actually lighter than this in the original. So if you have a white colored pencil, you could always make it even lighter by adding some white on top. If you have a white colored pencil. That is followed by a really rich red, which I'm going to use a combination of this deep red here, followed by that beautiful orange red I used before, like that. So I'm going to let you finish those three layers, the mid-tone blue, the pale blue, and the dual red. That is very similar to what we did when we were layering right here with the orange red, which is called poppy red, and the crimson red, okay? So I'm going to finish those three layers up and then come back to you in a minute. Okay, so we are in the end stretch here with the top of our picture. So we're going to be continuing with our purples and a little bit of blue towards the very top here, but really for these layers beyond the red, you're going to notice there's a deep blue violet, a red violet, a lavender. So those are the three colors that I'm going to do next. I'll get you started with that, and then we'll finish up with a light blue. So for the really deep purple, we're going to want to go for a blue violet in the darker tone. And I'm thinking this mixed with a bit of this is going to give us the perfect color there. So again, it's a combination of two colors. It's not just one. And that will continue over to here too. So I'm going to mix those two. And it'll be also over here for this section. Then right above it will be the more of a beautiful red violet. And this mixed with this is called, whoops, oh, baton throw there. This is called processed red, and this one is called mulberry. And I do think the combination of the two should really give us that dramatic effect of color, like that. And then finally, above that, it's going to be a very pale lavender, sort of a pinkish, lightish lavender. So I may have to use this with a bit of this to get that sort of, this is called violet, Parma violet with the mulberry, to kind of get that reddish violet color. So those are those three layers. Then I'll come back and I'll finish up with the last little bit. There's two blues here, blue and blue. So let you fill in the purples. Remember, we got a blue violet going on here, more of a reddish pinkish violet, and a pale lavender here. Then we'll talk about the outlines and the blues for the other section, okay? So I'll see you in a minute after you've filled in those areas. So I was just finishing up the last little bit of purple here, and I just wanted to point out that like we used the blue here, you're gonna notice there's some beautiful pinks that are outlining the edge of the lavender there. So I'm going to go in here with my pink and just bring out the edge of that little mountain line like that. It'll give it some definition from the blue, which is the last part we're going to work on next. So I'm going to put my pinks aside. I'm going to get some blues out because we're going to need a few blues to finish up the top of this. And that will be done very shortly. I have 3 light blues here, plus this one, and those should be more than adequate to finish the last little bit. So actually, if we take a pencil here, there's a little bit of a 1, 2, 3 blues happening there, 1 here and 2 there. So we're going to break it up in that way. So a tiny bit of light blue, then we have a bit of a mid blue and slightly darker blue. So we're going to start with the lightest blue first. Very, very light indeed, right here in that corner, followed by a mid blue, a mid-tone blue, like this. That's kind of like close to that blue jean blue we were using earlier. Like that. And then we have a slightly, not really heavy darker blue, but just a slightly, just a little transition between the other 2 blues here. So I'm going to bring that in like this. Now, that same blue is going to continue over here. But you know me, I like to blend other blues in, so I might blend a few blues in there to give it a little depth. So it's not all quite the same. So I'm going to put a little bit of this blue jean blue in there, and then I'm going to continue with the blues I was just using a moment ago for the top. And again, I have this paper underneath to capture any of the color pencil that needs to go off the page, like that. Okay, and I'm going to bring a little bit of that light blue in here too to just, again, give it some depth, layering it up a little bit. And then we, of course, have 2 blues here, 1 darker. So we're going to get the darker blue down first. I'm going to start with this light blue, but then I'm going to put a darker blue on top of it. So it starts here. Like this. Then there's a slightly, just, that one's breaking, so I'm not going to use that. A slightly darker blue. We could use that indigo blue that we had before. Where is that indigo blue? Here it is. Just to bring a little bit of darkness to it, not too much. We don't want to get too heavy-handed with the blue there. But we do want to just make it a little more intense. And I could take that blue jean blue on top of it again to kind of balance it out right off the page. And then the lightest blue is going to go right here, the lightest section of blue that we have. And I'm going to take a little bit of a light blue on top of that. And there you go. Now you can check for anywhere you think you need to add a little depth, like here maybe along the edge of the blue that I just finished coloring. Might go in there and add a little more depth. Here in the purple, if you take like a dark purple like this, there is a kind of a reddish purpley line that does outline, so you can go back and just take a slightly deeper color to emphasize the outlines. This is very characteristic of Ted Harrison's work, to kind of go back and add these rich colored outlines within the picture. I'm not surprised at all to see him do it in this picture, this painting as well. You can touch up any areas you feel like, I could have, darkened that edge to make it stand out a bit more from the color above it. So that's what I'm going to do. So instead of using a black, he uses a variation on the color that is used for that section. That's very classic of his work. Now, let's take a look. We have a gorgeous, gorgeous picture based on the original Ted Harrison, Whales of Monterey, with the additional fish down here. Let's take a look. Here's our reference, and here is our beautiful result. I hope that you enjoyed working on this today as much as I did. If you do need to rewind the video and review color mixing or color layering, please feel free to do so. I really enjoyed working with you today. This is Doris Benter of Library Arts. Keep creating.